Your next speaker is someone that really, I want you to really kind of sit up in your chair, get your clean sheet of notebook paper out, because this is really one of the fastest ways to grow your business, and that is to connect with your message, share that message, right, in a public forum, and do it in an articulate, inspiring, organized way. So I really think the cool thing about John, and I'm going to say his name because if you see it printed, you won't be able to say it. I love him. I'm very fortunate to coach him for like a week. I called you John Rasiej. It's John Rasiej. So John has created a system in a company called Speak Louder Than Words. And I love that because what he's really showing people and coaching people to do is to communicate their message in an effective way that's not just standing and talking to you, but it's movement-based, it's message-based, and it's motivational-based. And I think for me personally, because you heard my story this morning and my background, the reason that I think he does it in such a unique way and how he's able to kind of tap into people that some people that just talk to you about speaking are not able to do is because he's had, 20 years of theater background? Yeah, over 20 years in theater. And so he really takes the elements from a theatrical background, the elements of business building, and the elements of launching your movement, put all those together in a way that when you communicate your message, you make money doing it. Does that sound good? Great. Everybody like to learn to do that today?
Sure.
Hell yeah, love it. Please stand up and give a very warm welcome to John Rasiej.
Thank you, everyone. I want to start by asking some questions. How many of you would like to take your message and your movement and connect it with more people? Hundreds? Thousands? Maybe more? How many of you want to make more money with your movement?
Yeah.
How many of you want to have more meaning in your life?
Yes.
Want to change the world? Want to leave things better than the way you found them? Yeah. Excellent. I want to talk about a way we can do that. Now, it's been a very interesting day. I'm sure that you've all written a lot of notes based on what David and Suzanne and Vicki were covering. But just for the next minute or two, I'd like you to put down your pens and just let yourself imagine. Imagine how different the world would be had Martin Luther King not stood up in Washington and shared his words with 1 million people. Imagine where we might be if FDR had not inspired a country, or Winston Churchill his. Imagine how women's lives might be different if Susan B. Anthony hadn't used her voice. Let's leave Susan up there for a little longer. Susan deserves equal time, right? Hell yeah! Imagine how much less the world might have if we hadn't had the peaceful words of Mahatma Gandhi. The power of the spoken word to move people is magnificent. Now, how would it feel if you could leave this room today knowing ways that you could take your message, your movement, and use those words in a way that really draws people in, that really connects you with them, that connects your message with them in a way that gets them to take action in your life, in their lives, to make a change, to take that step forward? How would that feel? Is anybody interested?
Yes.
Excellent. That's why I'm happy to be here today. Now, I'm going to spend the next 40 minutes or so trying to give you a lot of background about how public speaking, how really effective communicating can really take your message and allow you to take that quantum leap in terms of connecting with people. Now, one of the things I'm going to ask, rather than take questions from the audience, I'd like to encourage you to please write any questions down that come to you. I'll be in the back of the room afterwards, and I'm happy to address any questions, or you can take my business card, and please feel free to email me. But over the next 40 minutes, I do want to share a lot of information. And one of the things that I want to share, in addition to how to do public speaking better and how to turn your communication into connection is also why it's so important. Now, you may be asking, who is this person to talk to us about communicating? Who am I? Well, I want to tell you a bit about myself so you get a sense of both where I've been and where I am and where I hope to take you. I was not a born speaker. I was, actually, if you knew me back when I was a kid, you would be amazed that I'm up here at all. And I am living proof that nothing needs to hold any of you back from being up here. I wasn't outgoing. I was painfully shy. And English was not my first language. I was the son of immigrants and we spoke Polish at home. And my command of English wasn't very good when I went off to kindergarten. And unlike Vicky, I was a kid who followed all the rules. And the rules at the time were, don't speak unless you're spoken to. Don't ask questions. Don't rock the boat. And I took those rules to heart. And those rules about not speaking really drew me in. And over the course of time in school, I really remember being very, very quiet. Painfully so, to the point that I remember one year, there was a spelling bee in class. And the spelling bee somehow went into overtime. I didn't know they did overtime in spelling bees, but I guess they do. Well, unfortunately, I needed to go to the bathroom. And you would think all it is you raise your hand and you ask. I was at the point that it was more terrifying to raise my hand and interrupt a spelling bee than to actually fight this urge. And so I sat there hoping somebody win the spelling bee. I should have thrown it. I really just should have spelled something wrong and said our team loses, but I didn't dare to do that. But what ended up happening was the terror of being heard, the terror of speaking up, was still worse than the embarrassment of relieving myself. And I don't want to make it sound like any worse than anybody else's tragedy. We all have those traumas in our lives. But that was one of mine. And I thought, oh, I can just imagine this puddle of water came out of nowhere. Well, that didn't end very well. So you can imagine that that drove me even further in. And that shyness kept me from ever feeling confident about getting out, speaking with people. When it came to going to parties, I would go, but I would stay in the corner, maybe talking to one or two people I already knew, afraid to meet new people. Who knows how many relationships it might have cost me, how many friendships, how many business opportunities over the years. That was what I felt all those years, every time I had a chance to speak. Just stop. Now, after college, I ended up in a rather drab job in the federal government. It was the IRS, to be exact, 120 Church Street, New York, New York. I was a tax collector. Well, that teaches you a little bit about speaking, but that really didn't solve my problems. I ended up working for the government for a while, and it was a job that was draining me. But what happens when you work for the government is you're in a different pension system, and so your finances are sort of tied into staying there once you're there. So even though I knew the job was draining me, I really didn't feel the financial ability to do anything else. But what it also did was it sort of locked me in this isolated world. Government workers largely only talk to other government workers. You don't see missions, you don't see dreams. You basically see a lot of automated tasks that you have to do one day after the other. And so I was in this job and basically living this dull, gray existence. But something else was going on inside me, and I knew I couldn't survive if that was my life. I needed something else. I needed some creative outlet so that I could say, well, the job is paying for what I really want to do in life. And thanks to a few things, I actually fell into theater. And I started taking acting classes, which was actually very interesting to find out that a lot of shy people turn to acting to help them get out of what is holding them back. So I started taking acting classes, started doing shows. And it finally gave me a chance to express myself. But in a safe way, I found, because you're expressing yourself as another character. You're not being yourself. But one of the things, and it's really a blessing, and I thank my wife for introducing me to this teacher. I studied with a teacher in New York, professionally, for about 2 years, who taught an amazing technique that really connects people on stage. It isn't about how you stand. I mean, there are elements of theater in it, but it was very much about how you connect with other people. And it really showed me a way that you take communication and you turn it into connection. And I acted in some shows, had a degree of success. And I was asked before long to direct some plays. And I took this opportunity. It wasn't something I was looking to do, but what I felt that I would do was to take this same technique and apply it to the actors that I was directing. And what intrigued me was by applying this very same technique, they were able to get this same kind of connection between each other. And my shows actually became known for how connected the characters were. Audiences would always come out and say they felt they had seen a real family on stage. So I stayed with acting for a while through the rest of my career with the federal government. And then about 8 years ago, I was offered the chance to take an early retirement. And to leave that job, nothing could hold me back. So I battled them. They actually tried to take the opportunity back from me, but I got out. And I stayed with acting for a while, but I didn't quite know what I wanted to do. And a large part of that I attribute to the fact that the government had sort of dulled me to the possibilities that exist outside. So what happened to me is I became a couch potato. I became the type of person who basically says, well, basically life is you get up, you watch SportsCenter, you wait for Everybody Loves Raymond reruns, you pick out a newspaper you want to read, and so on and so forth. Now, I stayed with theater while I was doing this, but I had absolutely no idea that there were missions out there, that there were purposes out there. And this was what I thought life was about. Now, at the time, I was also trying to support my wife, who had started a business to assist women in overcoming fears that they hold in their primal brains, and also to connect much more with the strength that they hold as women. And I really enjoyed doing whatever I could to support her. I was able to teach myself how to design a website. I was able to design logos because that had been my major in college. So I did those types of things to try to support her. Well, that all led to one very eventful day last December when Suzanne Evans and I met at the Help More People tour. Now, if you know Suzanne, you know she likes to tour, because everything's a tour. I think it's an excuse to eat at every fine restaurant across America. But that day, the reason that I came along was that Suzanne had a companion ticket, and I thought, well, I can go and listen to what my wife is hearing. Maybe I hear something she misses, maybe I hear it from a different perspective. But what happened that day was that something stirred inside me and asked the question, why are you not doing something with your gift? And now, it wasn't a Broadway song, and it wasn't a trip through a dam, but it was that moment for me that said to me, you need to be doing something. But as Suzanne said, everything you need is in this room. And what I needed that day was something to show me what my mission should be. And what I witnessed that day was many, many wonderful entrepreneurs, many of them women, a few men as well, who would get up to speak about what they wanted to do. And something was holding them from expressing it very well. They were either trembling, their voices were soft, they couldn't really put a meaning to what they were trying to describe. And I saw all these people who wanted to accomplish all these wonderful goals. And I thought to myself, wow, I know something these people need. I can actually help these people to do the work that they're intended to do. And if I can help them help more people, well then vicariously I'm helping more people. How great is that? So I signed up with Suzanne on the spot. I was there to support Louisa, but somehow I'm the one who ended up walking out as a Suzanne Evans client. Louisa has studied with Suzanne, by the way, so please don't take that as one choice or another. Now, what ended up happening was we started working and developed what has become Speak Louder Than Words. And that's how I got here today, and that's why I want to share with you what I think is very, very important. Because I sense in this room that there are a tremendous number of great missions, great movements just waiting to happen, waiting to be bigger. And I want to share with you ways you can do that.